Hi friends, welcome back to People Full of Joy. I'm Cheryl if you're new around here. Today we are playing around in the kitchen. I'm excited to try this new recipe I found. This is for an English muffin bread. English muffin, I love English muffins to make breakfast sandwiches, but I've seen the bread that you bake in a loaf pan like this. I've never tried it, but I've always wanted to, and I figured why not do it today. So we are going to get started. We've got 5 3/4 cup of flour in here. We have our tablespoon plus a teaspoon of sugar. We have a tablespoon plus a teaspoon of active yeast. We're going to put in a tablespoon of salt. And I'm excited to get to use the salt that I just got for Christmas. My sister-in-law got this for me. She heard me talking about the Redmond's real salt. If you haven't seen this before, apparently there's no comparison. This is salt that is probably one of the purest, or it is the purest salt that there is in the market. A lot of our salt in this country is brought in from Pakistan or Afghanistan or from China or all these other countries. And what they do is they mine the salt, but they take it to their factories where they mine it, or where they process it, and they literally strip all the minerals out of the salt and then they add them back in, which makes zero sense to me that you would do that. So this stuff is mined in Utah, and it goes strictly from the mine to their plant where they process it. Nothing is ever stripped away. It is strictly taken from the mine, from the walls, taken right to the factory, and they process it. They grind it to whatever they need, whatever sizes. I can leave a link. I found this stuff on another YouTube channel that I follow. She went and did a tour of the Redmond real salt mines in Utah, and it's a fascinating video if you get a chance to watch it. I'll leave both those links in the description for you guys so you can check it out. But I'm excited to do this. My husband and I are going to do a salt comparison this weekend. We're going to try this compared to kosher salt and our pink salt that we get here, and we get ours usually at Costco. But we're going to try those different salts this weekend, and we're going to do a comparison and see what we think, if we can tell a difference between this one and how pure this is versus the stuff we get in the stores. So we're going to use a tablespoon of our Redmond's real salt. And let me show you the color of this compared to white salt. See how beautiful and pink this is? That is the salt that comes from the mines in Utah. So we've got this, and now we're going to do in 2 1/4 cups of warm water. That's going to activate our yeast. So we have our 2 1/4 cups of warm water. We're going to put this in, and we're just going to mix this with a wooden spoon. If you have a dough whisk, you can also use that too. I don't have one. I would love to get one day. It's on my wish list with a few other things that I would love to add to my kitchen, but one of these days it'll happen. But for now, we're just going to use a wooden spoon, and we need what they call a shaggy dough. So a shaggy dough is a dough that is not completely come together. It's not in a nice dough form. This is going to be just very basically ugly. It's going to be an ugly dough, but that's what we need to make our bread to have that texture like an English muffin does when we cut it. So we're just going to lightly mix this. We don't want to over mix it. We really want this to be, like I said, a real shaggy type dough, but we do want to get all of our flour mixed in. And this is going to get covered up with some saran wrap, and it's going to rise for 1 hour. And then we're going to do a couple of other steps to this to make this into our English muffin bread, which is going to be super tasty tomorrow morning with probably some eggs and maybe a little bit of ham or something like that. So this has the same shaggy texture as my 4-ingredient bread that I do in my Dutch oven. So this has a nice shag to it. As you can tell, it's not beautiful, it's not put together, it's a little bit tacky, but it has that just shaggy look to it. So we're going to cover this up with some saran wrap. As soon as I get the dough off my hands, we're going to cover this up. We're going to put this in a warm place, covered with a kitchen towel so that it's away from a draft, and it has time for the yeast to activate, for this to rise. And then we're going to split this into 2 loaves, and we're going to bake this. So we've got a loaf. We're going to roll of a saran wrap here. We're just going to cover our bread up. Cover this up nice and tight. We want to make sure that it's not going to get a draft. We're going to make sure that everything is covered and it's sealed, has a good seal around it. We're gonna take our kitchen towel. We're gonna put our kitchen towel over this and we're gonna set this. I like to set it on the back of my stove away from a draft so that it has a chance to really get some moisture in there, not moisture, but some heat in there and really make the bread rise, let the yeast activate with all the other things that are in there. So we're gonna let this rise for an hour and then we will come back and we'll finish the process of getting it. All right, so it's been about an hour. Our bread has risen and is looking beautiful. I'll show you that in a minute. We need to spray our pans. I'm using foil pans because I broke one of my glass bread pans. I have no idea how I broke it, but I broke one. So I'm short a pan, I need two. So I'm gonna just use two of these. I have a little hack for you though. I started this recipe, then realized that I don't have any cornmeal. I thought I had some, but I don't. So I was doing some research and I found a little hack for you. If you have tortilla chips in your house, and a mortar and pestle, a spice grinder, a food processor, anything like that, you can grind up corn tortilla chips just like this. And this will work just great to line your foil pans with if you don't have any cornmeal. So we're gonna give our pans a quick spray. We're just using a neutral avocado oil because we don't want anything that's gonna compete. So we're just gonna make sure you spray these all the way around, making sure we get all the corners. Now we're gonna take our cornmeal or our crushed tortilla chips. We're gonna sprinkle these in and we're gonna use these all the way around. We're gonna shake our pans. Use your counter if you have to, and if you have a bald spot, grab a little more of your tortilla chips. You wanna just keep shaking this around until we get a good coverage. Same with this one. We're just going to roll it around until we get a good coverage. If you have any that ended up on your board, scrape them off, toss them in here. There's a little bit left in this one. We're just going to keep moving this pan around until we have a good coverage, just like that. And then we're going to take our dough, and here is what our English muffin dough is looking like. I told you we started out with what they call a shaggy dough. This is what our dough looks like. Super beautiful. What I need to do, I have my husband to help me, I need to spray my hands. Take off your jewelry if you're wearing rings. Take them off. Last thing you want to do is be digging dough out of your jewelry. Just like that. So we're going to rub our hands together, grease them up so our hands don't stick. We're gonna get in, let's get all of our dough off of the sides of our bowl, and we're gonna split this in half. If you have a little bit of dry dough at the bottom, it's totally fine. We're gonna scoop this up, flip it around, and we're gonna split this dough in half. We're gonna take each one of our clumps and we're gonna drop it in our dough pan or bread pan. And let's give it a little bit of a spread in here so that our pan is nice and even. It's sticking just a little bit to my hands, but it's fine. We're gonna grab our other one. We're gonna put this one in this pan. We're gonna use, let's do a little more spray on my hands, just a little bit. There we go. Let's rub that. There we go. That's what I needed, was a little bit more oil on my hands. So your dough should not fill your pan any more than halfway. If it goes any further than that, your dough is going to bubble over the top and you don't want that, and it's going to make a huge mess in your oven. So now these are going to get covered with a greased piece of saran wrap and they're going to sit for 30 minutes back in our warm spot where we had our dough to begin with, and we're going to let these rise for 30 minutes and then they're going to go straight into our 350-degree oven. They're going to bake for 30 minutes. We're gonna brush them with some butter. They're gonna bake for another 10 minutes. They're gonna come out, we're gonna put more butter on them. And that's what makes your English muffin bread so good, is all the butter. So we're gonna wash our hands, we're gonna cover these up and let them rise. All right, friends, so it's been 30 minutes and our dough is nice and risen in our bread pans. Like I said, I am just using disposable foil pans. I only had one regular foil pan or regular bread pan since I broke one of them, so I don't know. I was like, I'm just gonna do 2 foil ones, that way We can save one loaf, we can freeze one, or we can gift it to somebody this weekend, or whatever we want to do. But this is what our English muffin bread is looking like. You can see all the nice beautiful bubbles that's on it. So we're gonna put this in the oven. We're gonna bake it for 30 minutes. We're gonna melt a little bit of butter, and after 30 minutes, we're gonna brush it with some melted butter. It's gonna go back in the oven for 10 more minutes, and when it comes out, we're gonna put it onto cooling racks out of the pan. We're gonna invert it, and then we're gonna take the rest of our melted butter. We're gonna slather this bread up. We're gonna totally let it cool. That's the key with English muffin bread. You cannot cut it until it's completely cool, because if you cut into it before, you're gonna ruin all of that texture that is from an English muffin, that gives you all of that, all those crevices, that's what you want your butter to get into when you toast it. So this is gonna be beautiful tomorrow morning, toasted up. So we're gonna let it totally cool overnight. We're not gonna touch it till tomorrow. But right now we're gonna put it in the oven. We'll come back in 30 minutes. We'll let you guys see what it looks like as we brush this beautiful bread with some melted butter. We'll let you see it as it's starting to cool. And then tomorrow, after it's cooled all night long, we'll come back and we will share with you guys what we're gonna do this with in the morning for breakfast. Probably some eggs, some ham, some cheese, something that's really gonna give us some good protein with that crunch of our bread. So it's going into our oven, 350 degrees, 30 minutes. Let's get this in here. All right, it's gonna cook, and we'll be back in a little bit. All right, friends, so I just pulled our bread out of the oven. I was getting some butter melted to go on top of it. It needs to go back in for a couple of minutes, but you can see how beautiful it's looking already. So I have our butter right here that we melted, and I had a little bit of residual butter on our paper, so I went ahead and just laid that on the bread while this was melting in the microwave. So we're gonna give this bread a little bit of a brush with this melted butter. It's gonna go back in for about 10 minutes. And then we are gonna turn this out onto our cooling rack so that it has some good airflow all the way around. We don't want our bread to steam. We want this to have a nice crust on it when we cut this tomorrow morning. Depending on, I'm telling you, my house right now smells like a giant English muffin, and it smells so incredible. I can't wait to taste this. So we'll see if we make it till tomorrow morning to taste this. Hubby and I may decide to whack off a heel of, I love the heel of bread, especially fresh bread. So we may decide to whack off a heel of this later tonight, have a little snack. We'll toast it up. If that happens, we'll bring you guys along for that. But right now we're gonna put this back in our oven for another 10 minutes so that it can finish cooking with our melted butter on it. Then when we come out, we are gonna slather this thing up with so much melted butter, it's going to be insane. But we are gonna make this super tasty, and I'm excited to taste this. We will see what happens when this comes out of the oven. All right, it's been 10 minutes. I smell this bread. It is ready to come out of the oven. And I'm telling you, this stuff smells so amazing. I can't get over it. I was just telling my husband, the smell of this is incredible. It is so good. So take a look at this before we dump it out. You can see our beautiful bread. It says we are supposed to invert this onto a cooling rack immediately. And look at that. Look how beautiful that came out of the pan. Let's get this flipped over. Oh my gosh, that crust, that crunch that's on there. Okay, we got the other one popped out. We're gonna flip this back over, and we are going to slather this with all of this melted butter. This, I was just saying, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hold off after this cools until morning. This might be an evening snack. We may have to come in here this evening and slice off an end of this and just have a little bite, because this is smelling so amazing. I love English muffins, and to be able to have an entire loaf of bread that smells and tastes like an English muffin is going to be so beyond exciting. I can eat this with just some butter after being toasted, but I think what this is going to be super tasty as tomorrow morning I am going to cook up some soft fried eggs with a really runny yolk on those things. We have some, you don't need to have anything fancy to make a beautiful breakfast sandwich. You really don't. I have some sliced ham lunch meat in my fridge. I have some cheese, and I think we are going to take our bread, we're gonna toast this, get some nice crust on this. We're gonna spread some butter on this so it gets down into all those crevices of your English muffin. And then we are gonna put on some cheese and some ham, and we're gonna make a beautiful fried egg that has a nice runny yolk in it. And we're gonna put that on top, and this is gonna make an amazing breakfast sandwich tomorrow. So we're gonna let this cool, and we just might be back later this evening to give this bread a taste. I don't know if I can hold out, we'll see, but you'll find out. This is our English muffin bread that we made together yesterday. I have to admit, we actually got into it last night. We couldn't wait. So we had to toast up some with some butter. You can see you have all these beautiful little crevices in your bread. That's what you want for a tasty English muffin. So we're gonna make a couple of open-faced breakfast sandwiches this morning for my husband. We're gonna toast these up right in the oven, just on the rack. So we're gonna stick these right in our oven. We have our oven preheated to 375. And while our bread is toasting, we're gonna get a couple of eggs going. He wanted fried eggs this morning, so we're gonna do some fried eggs with some runny yolks on top of our English muffin bread. And I have to tell you that we ate that bread last night, and the taste is just phenomenal. It is so, so good. It definitely tastes as good as it smelled all yesterday while it was cooking. This is going into my regular routine of bread that I make, because I think this is going to be super tasty to have on hand. I made 2 loaves. I put them both in Ziploc bags just until last night, just to get it covered up. But I'm going to vacuum seal this one. I'm going to put this in the freezer so that they don't go bad. I don't want to lose it after all that hard work of making it. Well, actually, it wasn't a lot of hard work, but you know what I mean. Still, it's a lot of ingredients, and I don't want to waste it. So we are going to vacuum seal one of those loaves. I probably may split it into half or thirds, because we won't eat an entire loaf right away. So we're probably going to split that one loaf into halves or thirds so that we'll have it in there split up and ready to go, and I don't have to defrost it and then refreeze it. So that'll be an experiment for us to do together to see how it freezes. So we're just going to crack a couple of eggs into our nonstick skillet. We have a little bit of butter in here. No shells. All right, I need salt and pepper, and we're going to put a little bit of salt and pepper on our eggs. My husband loves salt and pepper. So we're gonna do, since we're doing butter, we're not gonna go as heavy on our salt, but we will go heavy on the pepper because that's what he likes. He likes his food to be black with pepper. So we're gonna let our eggs cook in our pan. I don't have a lid that fits this skillet. I wish that I did. They didn't come out with one. This is just a Pampered Chef nonstick skillet. They never came out with a lid for this. So I have other things that I can do to cover it up. I have a cast iron skillet. I can set that right on top of it. That'll cover it. That'll give us that steam so that our egg starts to set up inside. So we'll end up with a nice runny yolk. Let's put our bread back in our bag so that we don't lose it. We don't want it to dry out. We'll grab a plate so that we're ready for our bread and our eggs when they're done. And we're just gonna watch our fried eggs as they start to cook. All right, so here is our little trick with our eggs. Since we did not have a lid, we still have some nice runny yolks. Let's pull that off. We're gonna grab our bread out of our oven. We just did a light toast on this. We don't need it super, super crunchy. My husband doesn't really like bread if it's super, super rough. So we're just gonna put just a little bit, because I mean, it is English muffin after all, so you have to have a little bit of butter on this. All right, then we're gonna take our cheese. This is just the Monterey Jack sliced cheese. We're gonna put our cheese down. We're gonna put, this is just some ham, just like lunch meat ham from Costco. We're gonna put that on. They have a really good Black Forest ham. So we're gonna do that. Then we are gonna grab our eggs over here that still have a nice little runny yolk on them. Looks like I broke a yolk, that's not good. But it's all right, we're gonna get it in here. Let's try to get this other one out without breaking it. There we go, that's what we wanted. All right, so this is our English muffin breakfast sandwiches. I want to thank you all so much for joining me in my kitchen as we made a new recipe together. If you found value in this recipe and this video, please give it a like and a subscribe. It really helps me out, and I love spending time with you guys. It really makes me happy to be able to develop this community together where we can cook, we can share recipes, and we can share how much God loves us. Have a great day, friends.